The racing career of Australian-born Bob McLean began in 1959, when Canada's first permanent road course, Westwood, opened in Coquitlam. It culminated in '65 when he won the Canadian Driving Championship, and ended tragically the next year while competing against the world's top drivers in the famous Ford versus Ferrari wars. Bob McLean is represented at the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame in Toronto and at the BC Sports Hall of Fame Museum in Vancouver. His widow, Catherine, a resident of Burnaby, remembers the good times.
This is the first of Bob's scrapbooks, which he started in 1959. He loved cars, he loved speed. It was more important to drive well than to win. If he drove a bad race, like what he thought was a bad race, he was a bit sloppy in a corner, he cooked it in a corner, something like that, he could win, but he was not a happy person with himself.
In 1961, McLean attended Walker Racing School in England. At the Silverstone circuit, he set a new lap record for the car and became acquainted with the great Stirling Moss.
Cooper Cars actually wanted Bob to race for them, but I was the fly in the ointment there, and said I wouldn't live in England, but I would wait to get married to him, and he could go race in England and then come back and we'd get married. However, he chose not to move to England, and so he had a car sent over.
In 1962 and '3, McLean, in the Formula Junior Cooper, won an amazing 19 out of 22 starts, from Westwood to California. At Monterey, he ran ahead of Hollywood star turned serious racer Steve McQueen.
Once he found his line, unless there was traffic, he kept his line lap after lap after lap. He was a very, very consistent driver, and he was likened to Bruce McLaren, who was the same type of driver, and they looked like they went on slot cars because they just, if you watch them carefully, they hit the apex at exactly the same spot every lap, and consistency was one of his strong points.
During the week, McLean worked full-time as a mechanic and also at OK Tire, an occasional sponsor. He was now married with a son, and for the 1964 season, he acquired a Lotus sports car. In April '65, Stirling Moss came to Vancouver for a speaking engagement at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre.
Bob was asked to be part of the greeting party at the airport, and that's when their friendship began. And they went in, prayed together downtown. This is a picture taken the same day with our son Robert. He was named Robert Stirling.
1965 marked McLean's crowning achievement, the Canadian Driving Championship, beating out more powerful big-engine competition in his under 2-liter machine.
He brought the championship west, which has never been done before or since, and got the Civic Award medal from the mayor of Vancouver.
1965 also saw reigning 2-time Formula One World Driving Champion and Indianapolis 500 winner Jim Clark visit Vancouver.
When they went to Calgary to do the players' presentations of the cars at the Calgary Stampede, they were both leaving Vancouver, and Jimmy Clark was put into first-class accommodation in the plane, and Bob was running tourist. And when Jimmy realized what had happened, he left first-class seating and went back and sat with Bob so they could chat and further get acquainted en route to Calgary. And they had a wonderful time. And they both got Stetsons and things from the mayor of Calgary.
1966 began on a promising note with an offer to join a Canadian team in international endurance racing. McLean began the grueling 12-hour race, run partly on a Florida airport runway. During the pit stop for his second driving shift, the brakes were too hot to change quickly, so he was told to drive in a manner that would cool them down and then come back in.
The brakes didn't work. And so, as he was coming out of the turn, he was preparing to spin the car in the area that was next to the track. The car being very low to the ground and going very quickly, hit the cement block, and it made it go end over end several times, and it landed up against a pole that was a fair distance from the track. The car exploded because he had 2 full tanks of gas, and the car was hot, and the fumes just ignited, and it just blew the car up.
Prime Minister Pearson sent a telegram of condolence.
And people just liked him. They just did. You know, he was punctual, he was polite, he was humble. There wasn't much not to like, really, when you think about it. In the neighborhood, they didn't even know he raced, because the race car was never brought to our house. The trailer was never brought to our house, and he never wore his race suit out. Never. But sometimes people get full of themselves. Bob never did. And I think if he'd lived to be in 100, he still wouldn't have. I just don't think so.
This is Peter Lipsky in Vancouver.